Apply patience in listening, so you will learn to express yourself with utmost clarity. Applying patience in listening, so you will learn to express yourself with utmost clarity. If you're watching this video, you likely have seen the title too, which is How Ignored Business Owners Can Learn to Improve Communication by at least 200%. And you may say, okay, how does this connect? Well, that has everything to do with listening, with finding clarity, with expressing yourself, and ignored has to do with not being listened to, not being heard, not being seen. And usually that's the result of not being able to express what it is you want. So here's the question. Do you want to learn to improve communication or not? Are you the person that says, well, things should be the way I want and people have to understand me? Or would it be worthwhile to say, you know what, let's improve that communication. Let's be better understood. Let's be seen. Let's be heard. Because alone is just so alone. It's basically up to you. But I can tell you that once you learn to improve how to communicate, which also means that you will become a better listener, because if you won't be a better listener, you won't communicate any better. So one comes with the other. But then this will lead to an improvement in so many areas, in your personal life, in your business life. And if you can express yourself with clarity, this will reflect in the way you communicate with your clients, which leads me to question, how are you doing with your clients? Maybe you are perfect when it comes to communicating with your clients, or maybe not so much, and it could use some improvement. So if you are ignored on one front, the question is, why are you not ignored on the other front? Or maybe you are ignored on all fronts. And that's what you need to find out. Why are people listening to you when they are listening to you? Is that because you have a position of power? Is it because they respect you? Is it because they understand you? And if so, what's the reason that they do not listen to you and why you're basically being ignored? As in, not listened to, not heard, not seen, not understood. And by the way, this is usually in your personal life. So here's the thing. If you have the idea that you're coming last, then where did this first take place? Where did this happen? And it's not my goal to go down the rabbit hole in this video. So I'm not going to talk about how you grew up and all that stuff. That's for some other time, but not today, not in this video. But it is about, if you have a family, what's your position in that family? Where's your role? And how are you interacting with others? That's, I think, the most important thing. Communication is probably one of the hardest things, and listening is part of it too. So if we take a certain event, then ask 10 people and you get 10 different versions. because we all have things we pick up on, things we register. Some things are more important to one, other things are more important to the other one. It all depends on how you've been raised, circumstances, experiences you've had. Some are more likely to listen to sounds, others are more visual, and again, others might not even look at what's going on. So each of us has their own perception of what's going on, the reality of the world, based on what they allow and what their brain is capable of processing. And sometimes that also means that the brain is not able to shut something out. So people have heard or noticed something that they didn't want to notice, but they couldn't get around it. And that's what makes it so hard, because listening is not something we just do with our ears. It's about processing, it's about accents, it's about not just the emphasis, but also the silence. It's about pitch of tone. It's about being interested in the other person. Are you? So what's at stake for you by listening to someone else, and what's not at stake? Well, here's the thing. When you talk about being ignored, then usually you do not feel that happy, because no one wants to be ignored. We want to be seen. We want to know that we are worth something. I mean, self-worth is probably the one of the most important things, if not the most important thing. And what's usually lacking? Self-worth. It's, at some point in or another, someone has probably said something to you which probably has made you question something. And it doesn't have to be in all areas. It can be in one specific area. But if there's something that we are lacking, we're missing, that might be something we try to compensate for the rest of our lives. Maybe because we missed it growing up, maybe because of other reasons. But if something is really truly important, it's usually because you don't have it. And the question is, who can give it to you? So, getting back to communication, I want you to imagine a certain situation where you want to improve communication. And think about this. Was there once a time that you were spending with that person where communication was amazing? It was awesome. And if so, when did this change? When was this person no longer interested in you? And try and think back about what happened during that time. Now, before we go down another rabbit hole, because again, that's not what I'm after. This is not about finding out if you can blame someone for something they did, or if you can blame yourself for something you did. And yes, you probably know what I'm talking about. If for some reason you have picked up an interest in someone else, or the significant other or whoever it is you're talking about has picked up an interest in someone else, then that usually is because something started missing in your own relationship. And that's basically what I'm asking you to find out. When was it still right? When was it not that right anymore? Did something happen? Maybe one of you got a different job, there was an important project, something changed, which was very significant. What was it that changed? What did the other start doing? And were you interested in this? Maybe it was something that you started doing, and was the other one interested in what you were doing? So there's people being okay with one another, doing their own things. And then there's being okay and also being interested. So you don't always have to understand everything, but it's nice to be able to talk about what, excites you and makes you happy. So getting back to that moment where it's like, hey, I remember back then it was there and at some point it wasn't anymore. So try and find out. Maybe talk about it. And then something else you can do. If you talk about being seen, being heard, being understood, the perfect situation, what would it be like? And how, in what areas do you want to be met? Do you want your needs to be met? So if you express something you really want, do they need to want it too? Do you need to be others part of it? Or can you do it yourself and still feel good about it? Because not everyone has to share the same passion with you. Just saying. Then when it comes to being ignored, not heard, not seen, not understood, it usually has to do with the difference in how you perceive things and how others are treating you. Now, let's get one thing straight. Usually we can say, you let others treat you not as you want to be treated, but as you let them treat you. So you're basically teaching other people what they can or cannot do because you respond a certain way. And if they can get away with it because you don't get angry, or you do get angry but you don't remain angry, or you may remain angry but you still do whatever it is they want you to do, why change? There's a golden rule, and it is because I can. Or better said, because they can. And letting people get away with stuff basically means because they can. You let them. So if you let people get away with something, why do you do so? Because you want to avoid arguing? Because you don't believe it can get any better? Because it's easier that way? Well, is it? Because right here, right now, you are watching a video which has to do with you being ignored, not being heard, not being seen, not being understood, maybe coming last even after the dog. So what is it you really want? And if you know that you want something, but you gave up on saying it, then why did you? Again, what did change? Or maybe nothing changed, and it's always been like that, but you had the expectation that it would change because maybe you've been raised with certain ideas and you didn't know it could be different. There are so many reasons why we have this positive outlook on things which do not stroke with reality. It's simply not true. It's just wishful thinking. But once we face reality, that's when we can change. We cannot change others, but we can express ourselves and we can get across what it is we need them to do or what we want from them. And then they can say in turn, yeah, honey, I know you want to, but I can't do that. And if so, you can make a decision. What's more important to you? And do you need the other one to do whatever it is you want to do? Or can you find other people who understand you while still maintaining a relationship with someone else? So first, find out what it is you want and what you're missing. And then start expressing it, talking about it, speaking up, speaking out. Well, once they hear you, that's when they can say, yeah, we want this or we don't want this. But first, it needs to be established that you are actually heard, which means that you need to be able to express yourself. And that can mean that you try different ways. And there are some things you can do. You can find a coach who can help you expressing yourself a little bit better. And you can also find someone who is going to help the both of you, or maybe several of you, together to understand one another better. But there's also some other thing you can do, and I've done this with clients before, but it requires a willingness of everyone involved. And especially when we're talking about two partners, both partners need to be willing to work on it. If teenagers are involved or kids, we want them to participate too, but this is primarily about the adults. So you can start by writing things down. And the good thing about writing things down is people don't have to respond straight away. So people can find the time. So when they feel good, possibly when they are on their own, they can start reading, they can process it, read it again, do it again, and then start writing things down in return. Ask questions. I don't understand what you mean by this. And that way, there is no white noise. There's nothing, which is holding them back because you can't respond straight away. So basically, they are forced to listen to you because of what you've written down. And if they don't understand you, they can ask you about it. And likewise, you cannot interrupt them while they are asking questions or giving their response. And that's why this is a good way to learn to communicate. And it sounds pretty basic, but it's, once you get used to it, then you probably will improve when you see one another, when you're in the room. And when things get heated, you can always revert back to this method. So let's see, what can we do? Okay, so this is important. When we listen, we process things in our own mind, based on our own experiences, the way we think. So it's important to give those responses back, not in the words of the one who spoke them to you, but in your own words. And that way, the other one can say, well, I feel heard, I feel understood, or no, that's not what I meant. And of course, we are talking about you feeling being heard, seen, understood. So this also applies to what you have said. So let the other one respond. What's important is that you don't get annoyed, irritated, angry, whatever it is, disappointed, but that you try and be patient while the other one is trying to tell you what they picked up on. And if they haven't picked up on it, then don't blame them straight away, but just think about what is it, what you may have left out. What is it they may not know because they don't have your information. Try to edit. Try to say it differently. It's just like asking for instructions to go from A to B. Some will point out buildings. Some other people will say street names. And again, others, they will just say go left, go right, and go so many miles, and that's it. Each of us has another way to focus on things. And you want to find out how the brain of the other one works. Because that's actual listening, understanding where the other one is coming from. So, if we talk about applying patience and listening so you can express yourself with clarity, this basically has to do with getting a mutual understanding for how the other one works, how their brain works. And the good thing is that once you find out, you probably can inspire one another to do great things. So that's the cool thing. So 2 other things you can do. Find new friends, ones who do listen to you. Of course, that doesn't dismiss you from trying to also improve communication with the other one. But sometimes it's a fresh perspective, which really helps you understand, okay, how can I say things differently? You know, it's inspiration, new ideas. Also, if you share with other people what it is you want and need, people who don't have any idea or judgment, you probably get a better understanding what it is you want and need. So discuss this, and if others don't understand, they will ask you until they understand, and then you probably understand a little bit better why others have missed it. It's also important that you write down for yourself how things are progressing. So we're talking about communicating better, about listening better. So write things down. What went right? What went wrong? What can you improve? And here's a neat little trick, but you have to do this in a relaxed setting. Visualize what it's like when communication is improving. What's happening? How are you feeling? How's the other one responding? And you can basically practice coming across better. Your brain doesn't know if this is a real setting or not. But if your emotions are responding positively, then your brain gets this little push like, hey, that's something I can try. This feels good. This feels safe. So try and do it. And once you do, and it's a positive result, celebrate it. Celebrate it in your mind. And when it's actually showing up in real life, then say to one another, hey, we did it. So if you want to be better at being heard and being seen and being understood, this is all about communication, about listening to others with patience. Again, no frustration, no being angry, no being disappointed, because all those emotions won't help you one bit. And if you do feel them, you might want to take a step back first. But this is about figuring out what it is you want to get across, how the other one works and listens, and then you can express yourself with that utmost clarity. Let me know how this is working. And if you do need some help, I do have a free course in Start to Speak Out Now. So you can basically learn to be somewhat better at communicating. And of course, I'm a coach. I'm also a therapist and a trainer. So basically, my goal is to inspire other people But if you need it, I'm here. Find me, leave a comment, and we'll see what we can do. And I want to know, are you succeeding?